right, I'm here with Cory, the founder of Solodrop, who recently got acquired for six figures. Cory, how you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast. Before we get into the business, how you sold it, all that fun stuff, do you want to give listeners maybe an introduction of yourself for those that may not know you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So founder Solodrop, basically just a Shopify theme that's put on, you can use on Shopify. But yeah, like I said, before we get into that, I'm a software engineer. I went to college to learn how to basically just build my own products. But yeah, just entrepreneur at heart.
Nice. Have you started previous companies in the past?
Yeah. So this goes way back to high school, actually, where I tried to start. It's kind of like the classic high school college app where it's yeah, I want to party with my friends. I want to meet new people, I guess, and kind of have your own group. And I decided to start something called Click. It was KLIK, and that was kind of interesting because I tried to start this app in high school, but it didn't actually get anywhere because I didn't really have the funds. I had no idea how to build anything at the time. That was my first thing. I think I was probably 17 years old. And I went on, what was it? I tried to go on Kickstarter to do some crowdfunding to raise some funds to do some development. At the time, this was, development was probably triple the cost, than it is now to get this sort of thing done.
What year was this?
This was probably, I would go with
maybe
2010.
So that's when iPhone apps, that's when it was all getting started.
Yeah, for sure. And I was super stoked. I learned a little bit how to Photoshop a logo essentially and write down my whole idea. And it was funny because I was on the local news as this kid who's trying to start some app. But I was I felt like it was so goofy at the time. So I was I didn't even do anything yet. I'm just I have basically an idea that I'm spreading around my high school. So I went on Indiegogo because Kickstarter didn't actually, I think it was a social thing. So they were yeah, we don't do social apps. That was Kickstarter's, feedback for me. And I was pretty bummed, but I went on Indiegogo and, I think I raised a little bit of money from some family and friends, but ultimately that thing kind of just fizzled out and died. But what was really frustrating for me at the time was that I couldn't build it myself, or at least I didn't think that it could. So that's actually what kind of gave me the idea to go to college to learn how to become a software engineer because I wanted to just build my own things.
Nice.
So that was my first company that I tried to build. I have another really interesting one in college. While I was learning how to become a web developer and software engineer, there was it was called Ditto, Dyddo. And that was a challenge. Remember the cinnamon challenge? And
I don't know. What was it?
Ice bucket challenge where you put the ice bucket over your head.
Oh yeah. That was big. That was huge for a minute.
It was huge. Yeah. So there was a lot of these challenges going around. And I was man, there's not a platform for this, it's kind of sort of done on I think at the time it was Facebook. And so I built this platform for it. I only could do the front end for it at the time. And then I just worked with someone to get the back end done. And I had this whole site where you can create a challenge as a host, and then people could submit it and stuff like that. So I had a little small ecosystem, but I thought it was worth nothing. I just let it kind of fizzle out as well. So yeah, those were a couple of my earliest projects that were 10 plus years ago. But nice. Yeah.
So you have been an entrepreneur for quite a while. So now I'm wondering, in terms of Solodrop, so I'm sure you made other things before Solodrop. That's just kind of, have you? Can I assume that?
Yeah. So I did a lot of actually non-technical businesses in the past, I don't know, 6 years, because I've been doing Shopify stores. I've been developing Shopify stores for maybe the past 6-7 years exclusively. And that's for my day job. But on the side, I was well, I'm seeing all these stores making ridiculous money, off of it, off of just selling pretty basic products. So I did the whole drop shipping thing a while ago. That was my first, shot at that sort of thing. Just a bunch of stuff that I didn't really know how to do the marketing for. I'm not a marketing guy. So that's sort of where I let things die in my journey. But I think with Solodrop, I learned a lot from marketing and how to get it done pretty much.
Nice. Let's talk about that then. What does Solodrop do? I know because I'm looking at the website. But Like,
Yeah.
what is the product? What problem does it solve? And like, what motivated you to start it?
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, I've been building Shopify stores for the past 6, 7 years exclusively as my day job. It's just like something I fell into. And because I started building a lot of these stores and these themes, like, if anyone knows it, if anyone doesn't know what a Shopify theme is, essentially it's like the storefront of your store. It's what the customers interact with. It's how they get from like point A landing on your site to checking out and actually converting. So your entire site is like a Shopify theme if you're on Shopify. But yeah, the way that I thought of it was that I felt like I had this like unfair advantage because I knew everything about Shopify themes. I mean, I was sitting here all day just developing and coding for Shopify themes. So I had the insight of like a bunch of these really massive stores that I got to go in the back end of and see, what works, like what is working for them. Like you get the marketing team requesting us to build a certain feature. And, I would see that consistently across like a bunch of sites that I built for all of these brands. And I was like, man, like a lot of these are just like apps that people installed in their Shopify store, or maybe it was something that they just requested to build and it cost them like thousands of dollars to build a specific feature. So long story short, Solodrop is like a collection of all of these awesome features into one single Shopify theme. So it's just a really powerful Shopify theme that it like empowers merchants to just have like really, really cool selling tools to sell their products.
Nice. I love how you have, domain experience in Shopify, and then you built a really successful Shopify app just based on what you were seeing in your day-to-day client work. I think that's like one of the best ways to build a business because you're seeing the problem firsthand. And it
Yeah.
sounds like you just productized it. Is that right?
Yeah, and it was something that I avoided for a while too, because I wasn't necessarily like it wasn't like my first choice in terms of what I wanted to do next. I always have some sort of side project going or some sort of itch to do something else. But it felt like it had to be done. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
was something where it was like, all right, man, like I know how to
Yeah.
do this. Like
You had
I'll just do it.
you had to scratch the edge.
Yeah. So it just felt like the obvious next step, to make a business at the time.
So okay, so you built the product. I assume you started getting customers probably through the Shopify ecosystem. Did you have like a moment where you feel like you really hit product market fit, where you maybe had a day where you step back and you're like, solo drop. There's a lot of people signing up for this.
What's crazy is that I love that question. So I think it was actually, believe it or not, it was this year, and it was about probably 4 or 5 months before I actually sold Solodrop. So I also had a moment last year. So there's a couple points in the Solodrop journey where this happened. It's super interesting. So just to give like a quick recap of like the timeline of Solodrop, and so this makes sense. But I started it in like 20, somewhere in the pandemic, right? I built it on the side for a while, just completely solo. Decided to code the whole thing. But once I got it out there, it was a serious struggle for me personally because I've never really, really, really tried to do solid marketing on a product. I've always sort of just like either gave up early on with marketing or tried to hand it to someone else to help me with marketing or something. So I was like, no, this one I'm going to learn, marketing. And it took me a while to get to that point. But it was, I think it was last year in January where I was like, all right, let's just try TikTok. Let's just try the whole social thing and see if I can make like short form videos for a Shopify theme, which seems super counterintuitive. I felt like it felt like not a fit for me. But I was like, let's just try it. So I made a TikTok account, and within like a month, I think I got like 1.5 to 2 million views on a couple videos, and it did really
Dang.
well. Yeah, and it generated like I don't know what it was. I think it was like getting close to like 10K in revenue for the business, and I was really like, okay, well I can actually go to cold traffic and just like get them to convert, which was super interesting. And you would think that I would just keep replicating that, but I didn't, because I actually didn't enjoy making the content myself. It was like a huge, I don't know if it was my thing at the time to just keep making TikToks. It was kind of like, you hear that a lot from like YouTubers and TikTokers, that it's just sort of like this hamster wheel of content sometimes. So I was like a little bit afraid of that. And I decided to just, capture all of the potential customers that didn't convert, like their email, all that stuff. And I waited a while, and I got, it was like a few months after that point where I was like, maybe I should, potentially sell a solo drop. And fast forward like 8 months later, I think it was, I decided to make it into a subscription model where it was like no longer $200 lifetime. It was actually $20 a month.
Smart.
And yeah, and that's where just a lot more people signed up, because at this point, a lot of people already knew what Solodrop was. It was like getting embedded within the community a bit. And a lot, that's when it started getting like, real MRR. And there was actually like a lot of people who were signing up at that point. I think it was really that point when I made it into a subscription model where I felt like, okay, this is like really working. Like this is it felt like a real business at the time. So
Yeah, I think when you have like the one-time payments every month, you gotta have that amount of money coming in. But if it's recurring, you can predict the revenue out. So next month, even if no customer comes in, assuming your churn is low,
yeah.
you really have something on your hands, and then it makes selling the business a lot easier, and then also increases the valuation. So that's a good move that you did that.
Yeah, and that was something that I wanted to do since like I don't even know, man, like day two probably of like just conceptualizing solo drop. But that was something that I felt like I had to do before I sold it. Like I said, I considered selling it like 8 months prior to doing that, and then I was like, maybe let's just try this whole subscription model thing, and it ended up working out really well. So
Nice. I mean, I think when you're first starting a business, giving away lifetime deals can be good, but you definitely want to switch over to a recurring revenue model at some point. The sooner the better. But I get the cash up front, you can reinvest it into marketing. I've seen that strategy play out. But then if you have a cohort of customers where they're like free for life, but you still have to support them, that isn't as appealing as the recurring revenue. So it's awesome that you made that switch.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like easy to do that too, especially you look at your competitors and you're like, well, what's working for them? And a lot of the competitors are just doing a lifetime. And if you look at the Shopify marketplace for themes, which is not something that Solodrop was in at all, it was completely third party. All the marketplace themes are completely just one time purchase. So yeah, I agree with what you said. I think it was much better after implementing the subscription model.
Nice. So let's move on. So business is going good, and you got customers paying you every single month on a subscription basis. Was there like a day where you just said, okay, I'm going to sell this thing and put it on acquire.com?
Yeah, I don't think there was a day. I think it was a pretty gradual, decision, but it was more like curiosity over time, right? Because I started seeing these customers like retain, like actually like pay each month. And after a few months, that's when I was like, starting to get a little bit curious as to like what can I try evaluating my own business and see how much it's actually worth? And once I started thinking of that, that's when I was like, yeah, I mean, maybe I'll just give it a shot, and it wasn't necessarily like like I said, like a moment, but it was definitely a gradual decision of this, just over time of like, maybe I'll just see what happens and see if, is this real essentially? Because this is my first business that I sold. So I didn't prove it to myself at this point that someone is actually going to want to buy, a business from me. So, yeah. So at that point I was like, let's just list it and see what's up.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm sure when my team saw it come in, because we see Shopify apps sell, very, very fast. So I'm really curious. Tell me about, the first 2 weeks. You go live on acquire.com. What happens? How many buyers reached out? What was your experience like?
Yeah. It was, again, this was my first time like listing a business at all. So it was really cool to see. Yeah, I definitely got a bunch of prospective buyers just like in my inbox pretty quick. And I was actually pretty shocked to see that they were not like low value, I guess you could say. Like everyone that I talked to was like a real person that actually wanted to chat about it. And, like, honestly, I half expected to get some just buyers that are just completely just like, hey, what's up? This looks interesting. And then never talk to you again. But like pretty much everyone that I talked to was like willing to do a call or, just like wanting to chat or get some more information. But yeah, it was a lot. It was a good amount and it was overwhelming, I think, initially. But yeah, it was a really good experience overall.
How many NDAs did you get in total, if I can ask?
How many what?
NDAs?
Oh, I don't remember actually. Yeah, I don't remember, but it was a good amount. It was like more than I personally expected, being like a quote unquote like smaller business. So
Nice. Okay, so well, definitely good job getting on, phone calls with buyers. I think that's a crucial mistake that a lot of sellers make is they think that you just list it and then you just kind of wait around and then someone's like, I want it.
yeah,
But I'm sure as you went on buyer calls, you realize like there's a level of trust that needs to be built and obviously, additional information that buyers need to actually make an offer.
yeah.
So I guess, another question is, did you do any sort of preparation for the acquisition in terms of like a transition guide or common questions or just showing metrics or anything like that?
Yeah, I think I thought I did, and I really I don't think I prepared enough to be honest with you. So I'll be the first to say my finances with Solodrop were like it was like so it was very like just very muddy. I kept this on a very personal level. This felt like no one was ever gonna see this, and no one was ever gonna touch this besides me. So I tried to get the finances in order beforehand. I know that you guys encourage a P&L, so I definitely was like, okay, let me get a P&L, and I put that up and I connected it to maybe QuickBooks, which I did not have. I did not have QuickBooks at all until the selling process. But I think that was the major thing was like, okay, let's like start thinking about other people seeing my business. Like, what is that going to look like? But yeah, the finances was a really, really big one. I think was preparing that, getting that to look nice and clean and like understandable, like what's coming in, what's going out, sort of thing.
Yeah, that can be crucial for a lot of buyers because if they're a financial buyer, they're specifically looking at just, top line revenue,
Yeah.
expenses, profitability, obviously other things like growth rate, churn, but you can just see all that from, a simple financial statement. So highly recommend
Yeah.
P&Ls.
Same.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so you're now talking to a number of different buyers. Things are going well. How did you land on the person that acquired the business? Was there just a good fit in terms of relationship? Was it the highest price? Was it like what about this individual made you confident in selecting them as the winning buyer?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it was just a really good fit in terms of how I saw Solodrop going in the future and like where I saw it going. And also, yeah, the right offer, of course. But I will say, on that note, I had a few people that I was talking to that I felt like we're gonna, sign an LOI, like pretty quick. And the person that ended up actually buying my business, I felt like I almost unintentionally ignored them for like, maybe even like a week or something like that. So I think that is like you, it kind of goes back to what you were saying before, like just be responsive, make sure that you're actually on top of it. But so it was a bit of a shock to me that the person that I felt like just sent like a kind of a casual message over of just like, hey, this looks super interesting, like, let's chat about it. I think that I didn't take it as seriously as I should have initially because I was already talking to a few people that I felt like it was really going well. We already talked about a lot of like finances and stuff like that. But when it got down to it, and I just got on a call with him, it just felt like the right fit, just in terms of what he saw, and he had some knowledge of Shopify as well. And I didn't have to really over explain everything. He's very technical. I'm very technical. So he understood a lot. I didn't have to explain what, Shopify is, for example, and,
Yeah,
stuff like that. So
that's an uphill battle. If you're selling like a SaaS business and you're explaining what SaaS is or Shopify, if you're explaining what
yeah.
so that can actually be, that's a really good tip for just other founders too, is, when you sell to someone with experience with the business that you have, things just go so much smoother in terms of,
Yeah.
and I'd love to hear how this went, just like due diligence and like the transition. Was that easier because the person was, already familiar with Shopify and knew what metrics to look at?
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of funny because like, of course, it's a Shopify theme that is for the Shopify platform, but it's also the sales site is actually built on Shopify. So to actually verify the funds is pretty easy. If anyone's selling a Shopify store out there, like, you know what I'm talking about, it's just your funds are kind of there. You can't really, change that. It's just in the Shopify dashboard. So that was nice. But yeah, I think it went really smoothly overall with the buyer, just because of that reason alone. Like that he had prior knowledge. There wasn't a lot of explaining. besides of course like how the proprietary like system works for, validating licenses and all that stuff. But because he was so technical, he understood like really quick. So
That probably made your life a lot easier because,
yeah, definitely.
if the person's, not technical, did you do like a transition period or anything like that? Or did you do just basically sell it, it's theirs, given their experience?
No. So like, I'm actually finishing up the post sales support right now. I'm in the last like week of it, and so we're doing that right now. It basically just there's not much left. I mean, at this point, I think he understands everything. But yeah, there's a whole period of like just sort of showing how to operate the business and what it entails, and how to update users in the database, stuff like that. And thankfully, I don't actually, again, like this is another reason why it's the right buyer, because I don't have like a UI, for example, for certain things on the back end of the business. And these had to be done in a more technical way than, you might expect. And it was a non-issue for the buyer. So
Nice. Yeah, Shopify apps are great. I acquired one myself with some friends, and I call it like SaaS with like training wheels, because you can just log into the dashboard, you see all the metrics, everything's in there. You don't have to go pulling places from like 5 different areas. So I don't know if you would agree with this, but I think for people that are, interested in buying a company for the first time, Shopify SaaS applications, I think, are just great.
yeah, absolutely. I think it's pretty great. Mine was more of like a third party, so it wasn't on the App Store. It was just like its own thing. But it operated the same exact way, the same way that you'd expect a Shopify app to operate. But yeah, I mean, I totally recommend it. I'm obviously like pretty deep into e-commerce, so there's a lot of money to be made there, in terms of just building apps and improving people's stores.
Yeah, I've seen some really interesting Shopify SaaS apps, like pretty big ones, surprisingly.
Yeah.
But I guess for, again, congrats on, the acquisition. I guess for, the final questions is if someone came to you and they had, let's just say a Shopify app and they were looking to sell it, what's maybe like 3 pieces of feedback you give that person?
Yeah, for sure. I love this question. So I think the more okay, I'll start with the obvious one, which is like something that I learned here, which was like get your make sure when you're about to sell, make sure your finances are in order, make sure that looks good, make sure it's clean.
Yeah, yes, but yes, please.
Yeah, it's understandable. So it's not like this confusing mess of like, well, let's screen share my credit card statements, sort of thing, So it is, as long as that's good, I think that's like a really big piece to it. I'll say another one, and this is more general. I think both of these pieces of advice I'm about to give are pretty general, and it's that don't intentionally or unintentionally ignore a prospective buyer. I think that's, just be on it, because the person that I sold my business to, like I said, was not really like first in mind. I think he messaged me while I was like well into like feeling like I was about to really sell the business, and it was like a last second swoop, if that makes sense. So like just make sure you talk to everyone, just get on a call, like you said, just get on a call and like chat with people and see how you feel about it. You never know. You never know. Maybe this particular person, I'm not saying anything about my buyer, but maybe this particular person is like really bad at communicating via text, but maybe they're like an amazing person on call or something. And, they're really easy to understand, or maybe it's like your dream buyer and they have a great offer. Getting on like a Zoom call or something like that versus just messaging. So I think something like that is really important, because I feel like it was a little unexpected that this buyer just kind of came in what feels like last second to me, and just it ended up being a really good deal.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that point because a lot of business owners, startup founders, they don't realize when you're selling your business, like you're doing sales. You have to talk to people,
Yeah.
you have to get on the phone, you have to respond quickly, because that shows professionalism, that the more buyers you talk to, the higher your chance of getting acquired. So great job, Cory, for following up with a person, even if like they don't seem like a great, initial lead, you just never know. And they could be a great source of feedback. They could tell you all the stuff that they don't like. And that's information you can, put together for other buyers. Like there's just so much that you can learn from even uninterested buyers, or a buyer that expresses interest, but doesn't actually, end up with an LOI.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just to add to that, sales does not come naturally to me at all. This is probably the first time I'm like really selling something. If you think about it, you're selling a really big asset. I mean, at the end of the day, you feel like because you didn't buy this likely, you don't like, you have to remember what you're listing it for is like essentially the value that you're selling it for. So I feel like you need to think about that. And I don't know if that, was obvious to me when talking to, I just felt like I was going in Zoom calls and just chatting with some people. And, once I realized I actually had to sell this, I kind of like, something flipped in my brain where I was like, okay, now I have to be a salesperson on this. Like you're selling something that's like a big asset. So, but yeah, I 100% agree. But, yeah, in terms of like the last piece of advice, I would say something very, not as general and very specific to my business was like, I think it's good to ask yourself, did you try everything that you wanted to try for you? First of all, are you ready to sell? And if that's like, if you feel like obviously yes, then I think ask yourself, did you try everything that you wanted to try in terms of creating like the highest value at this point in time for your business? And like I said, 8 months before I listed it, I wanted to list it because I had like some good TikTok viewership and I had like a lifetime product, but I was like, like what if I just make this into a subscription model and then, crunching some numbers, whatever, it looked great. And then it was like 3 months after I built that, which took a couple months to build. I would say it was probably double the value. I think if I sold it 8 months prior, it would have been like half the value that I sold it for. So I think it's important to like consider that, like is not stopping anyone from selling their business, but like if you already want to sell your business, is there something that you could do in just like the next maybe 6 months that is going to make it more valuable? So I think that's something that I would probably tell someone else because that's exactly what I experienced.
Yeah, no, that's also great advice. And that can include things like reducing expenses, cleaning up the books, going through your customers and making sure that, maybe you can get them on yearly contract. There's so many different things you can do, but just having that mindset of like, okay, I'm going to sell it in the distant future. I'm going to start, positioning the business in the best way possible for buyers now. That's great advice, Cory. I like that. I guess my final question is, what are you doing now?
Yeah. So, pretty crazy. I decided to pursue being a full-time entrepreneur for at least a few months. So I'm working on a project, stealth project right now. But yeah, just to give a little teaser on that, it's going to change the way that local businesses interact with their customers. And I'm like really, really excited to do it. Really excited to build it. It's in the works right now. So yeah, if anyone wants to follow along, just check out my socials and I'll be posting about it sometime in the near future. So
right on. Well, Cory, I'm rooting for you. If people want to learn more about your story, where can they find you? We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So on Twitter, the Cory Lynch, and on Instagram is another place I post. It's just Cory Lynch. So yeah.
Right on. Well, Cory, congrats again on the acquisition. Maybe I'll have you again here for a second acquisition.
This next for sure, man. 100%.
All right, man. Well, I'm ready for you. Cheers.
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate it, man.